Очень плохо. So I try not to imitate Russian. So I speak English. I hope you understand it well. If you have any questions of understanding, or also when I'm talking about things that are unclear to you, just sign and ask. So you can interrupt me. It's very easy. It's no problem. And Mika was saying about that maybe I talk about how to becoming an artist. The first thing I can tell you, you cannot become an artist. You are or you are not. It's something very simple. I never studied art, and I was very lucky because I love to do things which had to do with art, and there was a moment where people got interested in what I'm doing, and they asked me, can you exhibit, can you show? But that were quite different times than these, so it's sometimes also very difficult to tell stories from the past and believe that they guide you to the future. So there's also something, and I studied something totally different. I studied literature and language and semiotics, and I learned one thing there which it's worth to remember also when you work. Never trust the author. Never trust the person who is doing the thing. So when you want to know something about the work, don't ask the person who did it. Look at the work. The work is the only thing what has a life. The author is lying. He's telling you what he thought he is doing, but sometimes he did something totally different. That's the interesting thing of art, that art is smarter than the people who are doing it. And that is what makes it alive. That's why we're still looking at things which are centuries old, and they are totally new to us, because the work is alive. The work stays there all the time. And so that is also now a contradiction, because I'm talking about my works now. So be careful when you listen to it. So the first thing, it is something, what is a sound piece. I just play it to you because it's a bit early, so I think you have to wake up. So I will talk about this work a little bit later, and it was a work which was produced for the Documenta 2017, and the title is "In the Woods There Is a Bird, His Song Stops and Makes You Blush." It's a poem by Arthur Rimbaud, but I will talk about it a bit later. I want to start with a work which is not very spectacular. Move this. Where's the word? Okay. That was one of the first exhibitions I was invited to in Switzerland, in Basel. And the director of the place, the Kunsthalle, chose a huge title. He said, "The Moral of the World." So it was really about being moral. And he invited several artists to make big installations, Ilya Kapakov, Mike Kelly, all these people. And he also invited me, and I was very young at that time. And then he asked me to come to the place and to visit the place. So these places in Germany, they are mostly, some of them, like this one, was built in the 19th century. So I went through the rooms of the museum, and then I asked him, you see the doors, and you see this threshold. This is the work what I did. And when I was moving there, I saw that the wood in the door had a different color. So when wood has a different color, it means it was exposed at different time to light. So I asked, have there been thresholds in this place? And they said, yes, but we removed them. And I said, why did you remove the thresholds? You know, when we do art installations, they disturb. So when you have a threshold, people think it is an object. Also, when you do installation, it is very difficult to do it. So, and then I asked him, can we put the thresholds back? So I made thresholds, and we put in every door the thresholds. So you now would ask, what has this to do with moral? A Latin word for the threshold is limen. Limen is the border. Elimination means stepping over a threshold. So the threshold is a sign. There's one order and there's another order. If you cross a threshold, you change orders. You change the space. You go over a border. Every archaeologist knows that. When they dig for the places, the organization of space, they look for the thresholds, because this tells them how the space is organized. So the interesting thing is, when you move about a threshold, you just move. You not pay attention to it. You not say, oh, threshold, I have to move my height a little bit higher. So you just do it as you do something very normal. So when there was a press conference, the director talked about all the works, and he forgot to tell about this work, but he fell down 3 times because he stumped over the thresholds. So that means he knew his place so well that it was already in his body, that he did not pay attention to it. And for me, this is a good example to explain where the field of art for me is interesting. It is in this moment how your way of behaving is organized without knowing it. Your senses. Because when you move, you're not thinking all the time how to move, you just move. But you not move randomly, you move coordinated. So you make decisions, but they are not coming up to your conscious. So the decision of what a form is like, something what you like or what you not like, is in this field. That is what is aesthetic. It is when we make choices. Why do we like something? Why do we don't like something? There the field is. This is the interesting field for me when I work as an artist. How can I touch this moment where your senses are, let's call it, formated. That means how your senses are made. Why do you like something? How do you see something? Maybe I have to do it myself, I think. This is another work, which is just a clip of a photograph from a newspaper. It's a magpie looking into a mirror. And the article which was having this photograph was about studying if animals can have consciousness. So the interesting thing is that scientists, in this case, think when the animal is reacting to what it is seeing, it is a sign that there's consciousness. What does that mean? That means that we think that images, to perceive a visual impulse, and you see an image, says you have a brain, which is perceiving representation. That means image perception for us is so important that we believe that only who is seeing images has consciousness. So our visual culture is an understanding of who we are. So it's really on the basics. So I find it, I'm not sure if this is correct. It is just telling you how strong the idea is, what is an image and what is representation. What do you see? Because we see all the time images, but we see something more. But we cannot see that when we not see it as an image. We just then see something what we cannot make sense of. You see white noise. So, and that is the interesting thing. You can change this matrix, what you're seeing. So you can see things later which you haven't seen before, but you can't maybe also see things later which you haven't, but if you have seen before, you cannot see later. And everybody in your biography can find examples for that. So this is why the art or the aesthetic thing for me is the base before science. And it starts there. So this was a bit abstract. Let's getting more sensitive. This is a work which was exhibited at the Documenta in the late 1970s. When you entered this space, you saw a cabinet with this image there. It was a slide box. It was a photography, and it looked like a beautiful composed landscape. So when you look here, you see stones. There were plants on the stones. So this photo was taken from this stone. The sizes of the plants like this. The exhibition was several months long. So after the exhibition, the stone looked like that. It was growing. It changed. This image is a very made like a composition. You know, it's very traditional composition. You have some clouds in the back, which are animated. You have this kind of composition of a bigger one, a smaller one. So it's like you would compose an image. If you compose a perfect landscape and you want to keep it, you need to control it, because it would change. It would destroy the image. So when you want to keep an image, you need control. You need power. You need to design everything. So that is what makes the power of images. When you have an image, when you want to keep the world according to the image, you execute power. And you need to execute power. It is changing if you don't do it. So the interesting thing is, this whole cabinet was totally artificial. There was no sunlight. Also the watering and the light was all. But people liked it so much, and it was received in the press as a piece about nature, a piece about getting back to nature, that they did not pay attention how it was made. It was totally technical. This nature is artificial. If you switch off the electricity for 24 hours, it would collapse. It would nothing be left. Because the watering would stop, the sun would, the light would stop, everything would stop. So it was a totally closed circus. And that was also what it was about. When you have design, you start processes which you not only have to control, you also have to maintain them. If you're not maintaining them, they collapse. So that is what was all involved in that, and I found it very interesting that it was received as a piece about how nature is, we have to go back to nature and how great it is. And I'm not sure if that nature is really existing. I think there is only a certain degree of technology which is existing, which we call nature. So, and then it is according to us. Then there's something else. So that was this piece, and the power of images. I had a chance to do work in Scotland. In Scotland, they introduced national parks in the late 90s of the last century, because when the Labour Party was elected, they gave Scotland a certain independence, and so they introduced Scottish national parks. They were not existing before. And they had a lot of money to invite artists to present pieces there, sculptures. So then I went there to see the park, and then I saw that in Germany, when you have a natural park, you are not allowed to touch anything. It should stay as it is. It doesn't matter what happens. In Scotland, they do turning down woods, there's a little bit of industry, there's a lot of things going on. So I asked them, why do you take off woods, and why do you do that? And they say, listen, we want to make the landscape looking more Scottish. I said, what do you mean by more Scottish? Oh, you know, that people like it, that tourists are coming and consuming the landscape, and they consume it that they see the images. So this is one of the images of this landscape there, which was in the early 19th century. And it looked like this. when I was there. So I said, okay, and what are people doing if they are walking around there? Because it was all the time raining when I was there, and I thought, it's not such a pleasant thing. They said, oh, we do barbecues. I said, how do you do barbecues when it was raining? Oh, we have waterproof matches, so there's no problem. I say, okay. So then I told them, listen, you take down these woods to create this image, what you have seen in the 19th century? Yes, we do that. Can I get a wood and can I produce matches? I said, yes, you can. So what we did is we cleaned the wood. I got all these woods and went to a company in Switzerland and we produced waterproof matches. And people could consume in all the shops over the places the matches. And then we calculated how many trees they were consuming. And because they wanted not only to take down trees, they also wanted to plant the trees. We planted on a different space exactly the amount of matches which was consumed as trees. So the wood would walk. It would take them from one place, moved to another place, just by consumption. People were consuming landscape. So then this was the place where they planted the wood. Today there is a big wood now, because just by consuming matches. So that is how you actively change the world, by consuming. So consumption is one of the most productive tools, but you need also to make choices how and you consume and what is the consumption about. What a lot of people are consuming are sneakers. This is the Air Max of Nike. That was a big thing in the 90s, especially in the art world. There were a lot of works about curators who were wearing sneakers. So nearly every curator had a sneaker. And I remember when I wanted to enter a club in New York, they didn't let me in with a sneaker because that was a no-go. Also, if the sneaker was worth $1,000, they would say no sneakers. That changed within 2 or 3 years. You could not enter a club without a sneaker. So, so what I did was a work. It's a blow-up sculpture of the Air Max Nike. So it's like this, and it's like a sofa. You can sit inside, and you can move it. So it's a playground for kids. So when I exhibited this in a museum, most of the kids are playing with it. And you see, there's a text surrounding it. This is a text by a British author called Zadie Smith, which I really admire. And Zadie Smith wrote this text for a magazine. It is now existing again. In the 90s, it was one of the most important magazines for lifestyle, Face magazine. So Face magazine was the magazine where the first time artists and commercial products were merged in a way that it was hip. So art and consume, that was brought together. The young British art scene, like Damien Hirst, all these things, that was made by that. So, and there was a birthday anniversary, and she was very critical about this way of consumption, of commercializing art. And she wrote a very critical article as a birthday text for Face magazine. And I need to read you one of the end of the text where she is talking about these trainers. At the end, it is new trainers you want, and don't try to tell me different. Well, the good news is you don't only think you want them, you really want them. Despite their 3-month lifespan, Nike's profits, and the children who make them. Because they are beautiful, because they are art. And as we have learned the last 20 years, art will you make doing shit like that 9 times out of 10. So she's reflecting about the role of an artist in a consumption society, that you participate in that what you are criticizing. And that is something what is articulating your position very clearly, that you are part of the entertainment industry. And if you do it, and you do it well, it's fine. But how do you think about changing it or not changing it? That is a personal decision. But you have to reflect it, at least. And that is what she's doing with her contradiction. She's publishing the text there where she is exactly speaking about as a critique. So she's standing on both sides of the barricades. And that is something what is a position what in these days artists mostly have. They're on both sides of the barricades. The interesting thing, the sneaker was exhibited in Art Basel, and then later they advertised it. And you see the sneaker there, and it is about coming to the art market. The interesting thing is when they published this image of my sneaker, you can't see it here. There's the stock exchange value of Nike on this day. So they placed immediately the Nike value next to it. So they saw it as a product advertisement. And Nike was very smart. They asked me if I would like to exhibit this in Nike Town. And I said, listen, I think it's not made for you. So I refused exhibiting it. And it was quite an interesting experience because I told him, listen, there would be also a text which is criticizing you. Oh, no problem. We can work with critic. So critic sometimes is a very good tool for promoting a product. And that is also something what thinking about when you criticize things, that sometimes you do exactly the opposite of what you want to do. So it's not that I'm telling what I know or not know, it is just something what is the contradictionary of reality. So what you are in when you work, and that is what I find also very challenging. That is something, a very little work which explained that a little bit. This is one of the Batmans with Michelle Pfeiffer. It's one of the first Batmans where she is playing the secretary and Christopher Walken is the evil man. And then she finds out that her boss is very bad and evil. And then he throws her out of the window. And then she is reanimated by the cats. And she is turning into Catwoman. So when she is at home, she listened to her answering machine. Her boyfriend is just telling her that he cannot come this evening, so she is alone again. And she has in her sleeping room this sign, "Hello there." And in the moment when she is turning into Catwoman, she is going back to her house. She is taking a bottle of beer and smashing 2 letters of the sign. It's hell here. Hello there, hell here. So I created this kind of neon sign where the thing is flickering all the time. It's saying, hello here, hello there, hell here. So, and my gallery was very smart. They put it in front of their gallery. Hello there, hell here. So, so that is also a play with this whole thing. So you will ask maybe how do you maneuver, what makes you interested? I'm very interested in the formal aspect of works. How can this help to navigate? So not so much about content in the sense, with the Nike sneaker, for example, Sadie Smith says, it's beautiful. I liked it. I had Nike sneakers myself. So how does this affect you? How is this form coming? So, and I like colors a lot. So this is a piece about, can art be concrete? So what is more concrete than color? This is a work where you see that the colors are fading and changing. So this is an installation with books which are having no text, nothing, just colors. And you see the sheets there which were printed. It is a very old technique when you want to print in a one-color machine color. You have in a one-color machine where you put the colors in. So you put not one color in, you put several colors in. And then the first print looks like this. But because in the process, when the machine is printing, the colors slowly starting to mix. So each print is unique because each print changes the colors slowly. So I did 500 of the prints. So the books, there's the first, these are the 498 prints bound in books. And then you see this one here, left. You see this here was the first print. And this is print number 500. So you see a huge difference between the two prints. So the funny thing is that you created something what is beautiful, colorful, but everything is also unique. It is done by a machine, but it is single. This technique was mostly used in the early 70s in the hippie culture. So for these kind of advertisements, you know, when they had no much money, they were just doing these kind of things, so they printed it like in color. So what it comes with is hedonistic. It is the nice thing, but how you have this kind of contradiction in it, you know. There's a mechanical thing, what you rework in a very simple way to create something what is just pure abstract. So that is how things, so it was mia l'amore mio non muore. My love will never die. And the interesting thing is, it's very 70s and coming back right now, this is how students are beating up the police. This is smoking a joint and having some alcohol and about sex. And this is about a revolution. So you have everything in one. So it was a publication in Italy by the leftists to summarize the ideology. And to play with these existing things is another thing. I was invited to an exhibition in Paris, in a part of Paris called Saint-Denis. Maybe you heard of it because there's the big stadium, Saint-Denis, the football stadium. And Saint-Denis is a little part of Paris which was very much run by communist mayors for a very long time. And it has a big park, La Courneuve. This park was the result of when the Centre Pompidou was built, because they turned down for the Centre Pompidou a big part of the central halls of Paris. And the whole trash went there, and they created a huge park, outdoor park from this trash, from the Pompidou. And a lot of people who live in Saint-Denis were at that time people who were socially not so wealthy, and they spent mostly their holidays with their kids in this park. So that's why the mayor said, listen, we need to do some artworks there, that people have something. So when they invited me, I was walking around and I saw these brushes that the street cleaners are using. And they are plastic, and they have these kind of imitations of real brushes from trees, what you use as for a brush in the old times. But of course it's made of plastic. So I thought, okay, this is Paris, this is Baroque, you need a labyrinth. So I designed a labyrinth and asked, can we put the brushes upside down, and we built hatches, so then you can walk in this. This is not really a labyrinth, because when you stand in front of it, it looks like you have a choice. But if you go in, you can just follow the way and you can come out of the other one. It doesn't make a difference if you chose the right or the left. The interesting thing is, this design is the design of department stores. If you ever went to IKEA, I don't know if you have been to an IKEA shop, IKEA is designing exactly the way how you can move through the department store as this labyrinth, that you see so much as possible. So that is the maximum way what you can walk in a field. So this is how you design when you want that people go all the time to shop. but you can play with it. So that is how it looked there, and then people were playing at it. There's a very, very bad and racistic joke in Paris. What is black and green? It's a street cleaner. So they associate very much the work of people with race. So, and then when this happened, some journalists told me, oh, are you aware that the kids of the people who are working there are now playing there? And it was exactly about this, turning the things upside down to make people aware of things a bit. And so that was quite a very beautiful way how things were dealt with, so that people were thinking about this a bit more in a different way, to see the social balances as well. And so that was executed there, and it was staying there for a year. And now it is relocated to a city in Germany, and there's already now 15 years, and it's the playground for kids, so successful that they want to keep it. But it's hard because it's plastic. So plastic is destroyed after 10, 15 years. The sun is the best friend and enemy. So, and talking about form, talking about commercial things, it is, you think all the time just about objects or things you make. And there's one thing what is very striking, especially when you're in the art world. For example, there are big events like Documenta or like the Venice Biennial. When you are invited to the Venice Biennial and you are there as an artist, it's quite difficult, not only to work there, it's also that you find out it is a circus of attention. The collectors are coming, the gallerists are coming, and it's only about how, where is a dinner, what is at the opening, who you can meet, connect, 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 connect. So it is working with attention, the economy of attention. So one of the main products you sell these days is attention. And the whole service industry works with attention. So when they invited me to do a piece for the Venice Biennial, I said, listen, I want to work with the attention you can create. So what I did, I designed a poster. It was posted all over in Venice. It was this, a star map, and then this. It's an introduction, what to do, and when you follow the introduction, you see a falling star. It's guaranteed, you see a falling star. So some collectors ask me, how did you do that the NASA is doing this for you? It's a very simple thing. It is a natural phenomena. It's called the Tears of St. Lawrence. It's a meteor stream which comes back every year. And it's in August. And especially in Italy, everybody knows it. It's La Notte di San Lorenzo. So the falling stars, you see them. So what I did, I just advertised something what is going on anyhow. And then I published a little book, so where you find the description of it, and then it is a glossary, everything about the sky up there and what happens there. So comets, falling stars, satellites, they think meteors, whatever. So it's a glossary. You see also movies, when it appears the first time, meteors are hitting the world, whatever. So, and then there's also to calculate a universal time where you can see this. It doesn't, you need to not to be in Venice, you can be everywhere in the world. So, and you can calculate your place, you look up the place, and calculate the time, and you see the best time when you can watch it. So, you can do it everywhere in the world. And a collector bought a piece, and I have no idea what he bought, because this is happening anyhow. So, and the Tears of St. Lawrence, why it is called the Tears of St. Lawrence, it has to do with Christian mythology. So, and that is a nice map which the NASA published. What you see, it is the map of non-cooperative objects. These are objects which you cannot cooperate with. This is the trash surrounding Earth. Satellites, all the things what we sent up there and we did not take down. So it's much more these days. So when you want to send up a satellite, you need to know exactly it is not hitting something there what is already there. So, and that's why these maps are so important. So there's a lot of traffic up there and a lot of trash up there as well. And so maybe not every meteor you see down, falling down is a galactic thing. Maybe it's just trash what falls down. And it's also interesting in mythology. I don't know how it is here. When you see a falling star, is it like you have a wish? Yeah? In the old Egypt times, this was a sign of death. Because the Egyptians thought that the stars up there represent each a human being. So if a star is falling, it means somebody died. For the Egyptians, the sky was the representation of the humans. So you see how also this world is very interesting of interpretation. And looking up and looking at things, that was a work which I did in the Venice Biennial in 2017. I was invited to represent Germany in the pavilion. And I wanted not that people pay attention to the pavilion. So I asked some people to be at the roof and to work at the roof and live at the roof. And what did they do? They produced boomerangs. And they throw boomerangs. So when you were carefully watching, you saw from time to time sitting somebody there on the roof and doing work. And then throwing a boomerang. So the boomerangs we collected and we gave it to people in the streets of Venice to sell them. They were signed, they were numbered, but they were never said that it's an artwork. It's just a boomerang, what you really can use. It was €5, and we gave it only to people who did not know anything about art. So it was just sold like this. And the interesting thing is, each of the boomerangs worked very well from the roof. Did anybody of you ever throw a boomerang? So when you throw a boomerang and you really want it's coming back to you, you have to shape the boomerang according how you throw it. And also, when you throw it in a space like that, you cannot throw it like this way. You have to calculate a bit. So what people do who build boomerangs, they adjust them. So they make the forms a little bit thinner or a little bit thicker. Sometimes they put just some rubbers that the weight of the boomerang is changing. So what they do, they design the form. In the form, all the circumstances of throwing a boomerang is represented. So the boomerang is documenting the space, you, and the time in its form. So that is the value of form. It is documenting everything. It's hard to decode. But if it works, it works. You will not ask why. So, and that is, yeah, and then you had a little leaflet which taught you in English, French, Italian, and Chinese how to throw the boomerang and to make it. And it was quite interesting that some people got very upset when they came to the biennial, some of my collectors, not, where's your piece? I said, well, maybe there, you have to find it, it's up to you. And then they got really angry that they did not have anything what they could get. I said, no, it is not about getting anything, it's just spending time and maybe find something. It is not this, right? And then there was a catalog published, and in the catalog I made an insert about everything what has to do with people on the roof and things throwing down from the roof. So when you walk through Venice, you can see that there are a lot of figures on the roofs. Also that on the roofs a lot of things are happening because Venice cannot grow in the area, it can only grow up. So the roof is something where you need. Also, when you look carefully, at the same time there were a lot of refugees in Germany and they were protesting. They were mostly protesting from the roofs, throwing things down. So also when you see prisoners, when they make a revolt, they go mostly to the roof. So and also then you have also in Christian mythology people who are flying. You know, I mean, when you know a bit the movies of Pier Paolo Pasolini, Teorema, there's a lot of flying in. So all these kind of mythology, what is the roof, what is up there, what comes down. So I reversed a little bit the work with the stars. So, you know, and that is this thing. Now we come to the taxi work. I like to travel, and I like to stroll through cities, and one of my favorite cities is Naples. And so I also like postcards. So I found on Naples a postcard. This is one of the central piazzas in front of the royal castle in Naples, and this was a parking lot. And today it is, of course, a pedestrian area, and this is a piazza where a lot of artworks are exhibited. So Anish Kapoor exhibited his first big sculpture there, Richard Serra, all these people. So they invited me to do something. Then they told me, oh, listen, we can't do it anymore, we don't have money. I said, listen, I don't need any money, I need just 50 euros. So I used this postcard and reprinted it and put on the back this. And then I distributed this postcard in Naples. So people were asking me, are you crazy? Why do you want to make a parking lot again? It's a pedestrian area. I said, listen, it's just a proposal. We will see. A month later, a friend called me. You should look the news. So we made this advertisement, and that was what happened a month later. The taxi drivers made a strike, and they imitated this image. So it was one of the most successful artworks I ever did, because I had no intention that people were using this image to create a strike. So then they really, and then also in the newspapers they referred to, oh, there's a German artist who created a proposal for making a parking lot, we have to fight this, and the taxi drivers used that as a strike moment, and it was quite interesting to see how when you circulate images, what can happen when you circulate it somewhere else. So, yes. Because about public space, there's a bit of a more serious work, which I would like to show you as well. It's a monument in the center of Vienna. And I was invited to a kind of competition for a monument. Normally, I'm not taking part in competitions about political monuments. Because I found it very difficult to make statements, and there are a lot of monuments about politics which already here, and there are enough. I don't think it's need more. But this was dedicated to something what I felt personally very touched. It is for the victims of the National Socialist justice, or injustice. It means for people who served in the army and they deserted. They left the army. They tried to sabotage, and they were sent to death. And in Austria, there was never ever a monument for these people. So, and also this monument was not initiated by the state of Austria, it was initiated by the city of Vienna, because the city was run by political social democrats and the Green Party. So I proposed them this monument, what you just don't see anything, you can go up. And it's a X. So when you would go, it's like X crossing somebody out. But the shape follows a text. And the text reads like this. It's the word all. You know, all. And where they cross, there's the word alone. So it means, what I really found interesting is a text by Einhilden Finlay. And he had a very strong relation to the city of Vienna, to experimental poetry. And what I found very striking is, when you make a decision which you pay with your life, you make it alone. You just make it for yourself. It's a decision what only can you make when you deserter. So you are alone with this moment. Maybe people help you, but at the end, you die alone. And that is something very important. There's a very moment which I found very important, that this paying attention to this courage what somebody has without knowing it, maybe that is courage, just to have it. So that is, so you can walk up there and you can stand there. When you stand there on this monument, you stand at the center of power, because the buildings here, this is the Hofburg where I used to be the Kaiser. This is also the balcony where Hitler was making his big speech about the Anschluss, which was in '38. And this is the seat of the president. This is the seat of the government. So you're standing there in the middle of where all the political decisions are made, alone. So you have directly a reflection on that. So there's a bit what this is about. And it is used for a lot of political demonstrations. So when people want to do political demonstrations, they do it there. And the interesting thing is now there's a lot of demonstrations which are especially made from people against the war and these things. In the beginning, it was also used by right-wing people, because it's a very mixed thing. Austria was part of Germany after '38, but they were fighting the Germans as well. So some Austrians who were also extremely right-wings were fighting against the Germans. So there was a nationalistic attitude saying, oh, we are Austrians, we are not Germans. So, but we are also fascists, but we are not Germans. So they were very strong identity. So also they demonstrated on this. So people called me up saying, listen, there are right-wing people demonstrating on your monument. Do you want not to do anything against this? I said, listen, this is reality. If you have a monument in public space, you must accept that people are there. If you want to fight these people, you do it politically. You have to demonstrate yourself. You have to go there. You have to articulate your opinion. You cannot forbid a meaning what you don't like. It will be there anyhow. You need to do something for it. So that was an interesting discussion where I was very surprised how strongly they thought I should tell them, oh, this is not my monument anymore, you have to protect it with the police or whatever. I said, no, you have to accept reality. If you want to change reality, you have possibilities. This is not the task of a monument. So that was a quite interesting discussion about these things. So maybe this is one of the last works I want to show you. Also of the politics of images was in Vienna, an exhibition. I like to collect clips like you saw in the beginning, the magpie. So I would still read physical newspapers a lot, and I cut out images because I just like some of the images. Sometimes also I don't know what the article is about. So, and these images were painted by people who normally paint on the street, paintings like Leonardo or like the Mona Lisa, these kind of things. So I asked them to paint these images there for the exhibition, and I invited for each of the images performers. So they were performing every day, so it was like a theater. So, but also, it's like this. So you could walk over it, so it was destroyed after the exhibition, more or less. But I published a book where I give it around. It's called News Cuts. So in there you find the images. This one is an image about people laying in front of the parliament in Skopje, Macedonia, and sleeping there and asking for work because they don't have any work. So, and then I created for each of these images a collage of texts from very different sources, from poetry, philosophy, novels, which are reframing these images in a different way. So when you read this, then the image is circulating in a totally different context. So that is what also is something how you deal with these things. So I give it around and you can check it if you want. Yeah, that's So and this is one of the last works I want to show you. It's called How to Fancy a Candle When It Is Blown Out. So what you see is this big wall, which is, when you enter the space, it is green. And maybe we can play the two little movies now. When you stand in front of this wall, the following thing can happen. So if you stand in front of it and you go away, the shadow stays. And maybe the next. And the other thing is, you can also draw on it.
Oh yeah.
With the iPhone. You just make little drawings. It's okay? Good. So it's a big playground. So people start to play in front of it, shadows, they move away, they write messages, mostly love letters or something like that. It's a huge playground for people. So that is, and the nice thing with it is, you see it here, how you can, yeah. It's a quite simple work. If you had good physics, you understand how it works. So, and this is what was the sound in the beginning. That is a performance where a musician is reacting to this sound. And the sound was composed out of fragments of recordings by journalists when they reported about riots and demonstrations. So it is a music piece which is 30 minutes long. You can listen to it as music, but there's also a publication when you are more, when you want to have a different kind of framing, and it tells you all the venues where the things were coming from. So it's all over the world, and it's from kindergarten to pensioners. So, and it is protesting. It's the sound of modernity. We can play it later again, but it's 30 minutes. I can give you around this, you can also through this. So I think the last thing I want to show you, and for this we need to switch off the light, is a movie of a piece, and the title is Zamani. It's like a name. So the piece has a name, like you give a name to someone. And the subtitle is a proposal how to answer the important questions. So, and this is the movie we want to see. I hope the questions are answered. Stop it. So yeah, that's a little bit so far about the works what I have done in the last years, and maybe you got a little bit an idea how I work and how I connect things. And there's one thing at the end I wanted also to introduce a bit. It is the folder what we were talking about. I don't know if he's paying attention to me. The second folder I would need. As you see, I gave around to, here's another little publication. This is this one of the Venice Biennial, you can check. Producing publications is very much part of my work. I really like artist books. It is also the tradition, you know, like conceptual art, like Ed Ruscha or Lawrence Weiner, which I really admire. That because a book is easily to produce, to circulate, you don't need a space. You don't need a lot of money. You just can distribute it. You can engage. And you can also do it with digital media. So you have a lot of possibilities. And mostly these days, catalogs seen as documentation. I find that a publication should be a mean in itself, that you use it as an artistic articulation. So when I had the first chance to produce a catalog, my gallerist said, oh no, we do a catalog now. I said, okay, what do you want to do? Oh, you produce works. I said, no, this is nuts. Nobody is interested in this. I mean, I'm not. So that he said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm not sure. I think about it. And then he hooked me up with a publisher. And it was a guy who was very, very independent, quite famous. And I said, okay. So I went to the publisher and bought a box with me of material, which I said, listen, this is the material which is important to me to make a work. Can we use this material to make a book? And so the first book we published was this book, which is just a little piece of paper where these things are in, and then it is a collection of material, more or less. So it's called Lektion, and so there are drawings, there are found objects, there are texts. So all of these are starting to communicate. They create something. It is not really a text in the sense, I tell you, I go from there to there. So they are mostly found objects with combination of texts and all this kind of material. So I made 3 of the books, and each of the books is commenting one artwork. So they are works in its own, but if you use them and you see the work, it starts that you circulate in a different way. So that is what I really like. It's called material. And there was also one publication we did. It's called Constantine. It's about one piece. And I'll show you the piece first quickly. This is the piece. Was invited to an old turbine hall. And of course, they don't use it anymore. So what they do, what they normally did in Europe, they transferred these old industrial spaces into cultural spaces, mostly for exhibitions, for these things. And then I said, okay, I want to put in there something what is related to the new energy, the green energy, but I want that this piece is not producing energy, it is consuming energy. So this is cutting the roof, it's going through the roof. So it's industrial thing, we just borrowed it from the company and returned it to the company after the exhibition. So, and what does a piece has as information? The piece is the piece, how it is made, one information. Second information, it has a title. What does the title mean? And the third information, where is the piece? In which space it is located? So the publication we made was exactly about that. The first thing is, why is the piece looking as it is looking? What does it mean to have this shape? Where it comes from? What references do you have in history for that? So it just goes about the shape of this windcraft thing. And also the reference, in art history to that. There's a lot of references with this. Because the interesting thing is, Constantine is named after Constantine Brancusi, the famous artist, Bird in Space. When Marcel Duchamp and Brancusi were working over an agricultural exhibition, there was one of the first airplanes with a propeller. And Duchamp asked Brancusi, can you do something beautiful like that? The interesting thing is that Brancusi shaped this form, which mathematics calculated is a perfect function. It's a perfect mathematical form. But he did not calculate it mathematically. But it is math. So the math was in his senses. So, and the interesting thing is, when this piece was sent to the United States by Brancusi, the costumes wanted not to let it in, because this is not art. They wanted that he pay taxes on it as he would import a technical tool. And he went to court. So there is a documentation about a court case, if this is art or not. So the court came to the conclusion it is art, so he had not to pay taxes. So went into the Museum of Modern Art. But it is such a big book, which is just publishing, and this is the court case here. So then you have the map. This is on the back of the image, there's the design we got from the company. So you can, if you have a big company, rebuild it. That is the column, the endless column of Brancusi. And then the space. There's a documentation about this turbine hall, the space, and also, of course, how this is the Tate Modern, how turbine halls were transformed into exhibition spaces exactly at that time. So the publication also, and you know the tools, you see this, and the publication gives you a totally different information about the piece, but everything what is necessary to understand and to go through the piece. So that is also something what I like to do, these publications as artworks. And the last publication I did, I give you also around, because this is it's called All Our Suns, also the suns out there, the stars. And I collected over the last 20 years all the images of outer space, which were published in daily newspapers. I found it very interesting that you publish something in a daily newspaper which is very old, because the light, what we see, is millions of years old. You know, a star there, we don't know if this is still existing when we see it, but people in 1 million years will know. So, and then the NASA made also amazing photos of stars. When you look up the map or the web page of the NASA, they describe carefully how they adjust with technical means the information they collect to create an image. Because what they photograph is not looking what you see. It is calibration, it is creating the image out of data. So, and this is just a book which collects all these kind of data, and it's not so much about what really is there, it is about the imaginary. So you have all these. A bit like the stars looking down on us. So, okay, that's now so far, and I am very happy to answer questions, if you like to have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. For the demonstration of all your works and explaining, I think that it was pretty conceptual, I should say, with some like social influence, so it also can be considered as a social research. Yeah. However, how do we write an artist statement? I mean, how do we, when we apply for open call or whatever, like, how do we persuade the gallery or the organization or whatever, like, who's sponsoring, what is sponsoring, to, how do we like promote, for example, and explain that, okay, you should invest in my like huge Nike that I'm gonna exhibit at your space. Like, how do we do that?
I mean, the Nike, for example, I did not ask anybody. I just produced it. So the thing is, when you write an artist statement, the first question is, what do you want? Do you asking for money, or do you asking for help? Do you ask for making things possible? And also, how want you be seen? You know, it's like a normal conversation. How you present yourself, so you will be treated. So the first thing is to present yourself in a way that people find you interesting, but not that you make fake things, but really what is interesting also for you. So first, a very clear description of what you want to do and why you want to do it. And also give the people the chance to engage with it. So that means think about them as people who are like you, interested in things. So one of the most interesting things when somebody, for example, I'm teaching also, and people are applying, they have to write a letter of motivation that I understand why they want to study. Most interesting is if people start to write something which I don't expect. Poetry. Just do something which is really personal, but unexpected, but very much carefully thought through. You can quote things. You can use poetry. You can use images. You can use everything what makes people aware and thinking. You know, the most boring thing is if you make a business report. Because these businesses are doing. That is not you. You need to distinguish yourself. And it's also an interesting thing, you know, who is inviting you? You never just do it out of the blue. So also to think about who are the people there. And I had a lot of experience, positive experience, talking with people about things, presenting them, telling them, what do you think about this, and seeing their reactions. Not so much in a way that I thought to follow their advice, more to understand the reaction. It's like you play chess. You train. You know, then you are. If this I'm doing, then this will happen. If this I do, this is happen. So, and when you want to create a portfolio, of course, the first thing is make it in a way that people can follow it and understand it. So act very distant. Don't think that they know what you know. At first, you have to give them very basic information. Good images, a very clear technical description, and a short sentence about, okay, what is the concept of the piece? What it is about, what I'm interested in. That is very necessary to follow these things. And then also, when you presented a portfolio, several pieces, see the order. And also don't, I think, I'm not a big fan of too big portfolios. So, you know, the expectation span is not that much. So you really need also to focus on this. So, but the poetry thing is not just a gag. It is really something what can be very important, but it's up to everybody itself, you know, or him or herself, how you want to present yourself. It is, but the thing is that people see you do honest work, and you are honest with yourself, and you are honest to them. It's like in a private conversation. But you need to transfer also the very clear, your interest, what you're asking for. And also when you ask for, it's also very good to make very clear that you're aware of what you ask for. So also that they understand that you know what you're dealing with. When you ask for big budgets from somebody, it needs a very clear calculation, that they understand, this person is knowing what she or he is doing. So that is what you need to do. And how to approach a gallery, I don't know. I never did. I was very lucky in a way that we were I was starting to do art, as I told you, not because I was interested in exhibiting. It was necessary to do. We were friends, we wanted to have fun, we were interested in the world, and that was the only way of doing it. Art. Everything else was boring. We just found art the way of living. We listened to music, we were so crazy to believe that we could do movies, because we saw a great movie. Okay, let's take a camera and make a movie. I mean, nobody watched that movie, of course, but we had a lot of fun. So we kept this spirit. So then one of us said, oh, I do a gallery. I said, are you crazy? What do you want to do? A gallery? Why? We need to sell things. And then, okay, let's do it. And then we did not believe anyhow that he is doing this gallery, but he did. So then we worked together, and I still work with this gallery after 30 years. And we never had a contract, nothing. And it was like a circle of friends. So the most important thing for me as an experience is you keep this spirit of community with people you are interested in. And that you really try to maintain this, because that is the only sense for me of art. It makes life senseful. For me. Life without art, I don't think it's senseful. So that is very important to keep it on this level, you know, and to engage with people. And so then people help you a lot. That was my experience. Somebody knows somebody and says, oh, yeah, this was, I can try this. So it is stay open to things which are happening. So, and support yourself, each other. That's very important. Not just seeing yourself. See a community, see people who are doing things together. That is what was my experience. It was very successful, but it was also very, very big luck, because it was a time which was long before the digital age, you know. So the information, when curators were visiting you, they needed to see you in person. They could not have any information about you before. They needed to contact you. There was nothing. So these days it is very different, because they know more about you than you know. There's also something to be very careful with. Everything you put out there, you cannot get ever back. You cannot buy it back for no money in the world. What you post is there forever. That is also something to keep in mind when you compose images, when you compose things. How the economy of your self-understanding. So that is something but this is something very tricky to learn, you know. And that's also what I learn now from my students a lot. How to move around in a world which is more or less totally different, formatted, not so much in personal relations. Or let's put it that way, it's a different concept of what is person. It's a different concept of personality. What is private, for example, these days is a very different concept than it was 20 years ago. The realm between public and private is shifting a lot. So that is something what is more a philosophical question at the end. So, but the practical things is really information, very good organized information, very good structured. Good images are also important, you know, or good information that you understand an artwork. And so far you can understand it, I mean the technical things, and then also the conceptual thinking. That needs sometimes also help, that you have somebody who helps you to structure these things. That is also very helpful to have somebody to talk about when you are not the person who can do that. It's not necessary that you can do it. Some people can help you. So that is very important, you know. And then addressing mostly it is the galleries. There's the old joke: don't call us, we call you. Galleries are addressing interesting people. It's rarely that I have never seen any portfolio sent to a gallery out of the blue where this was a hit. I never heard of that. I don't know any gallerist who took somebody just by getting a portfolio and not knowing the person. I have never heard of it. That is not working. You need to have a personal contact at a certain point, because at the end you do business with this person. And never do business with somebody you don't know. know if this helps.
Yeah, that was full answer, I reckon so. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. It's not like a direct question maybe, but just what are your thoughts on does the artist have to explain the work in its statement? Or like what is the role of the artist in translating the meanings and giving this information about the works? Because I used to work a lot in education about contemporary art, and I'm not talking about the people who are in the context, but I'm talking about the general public, and how contemporary art still is something elitist. For you have to know the context, you have to be very educated to understand a lot of it. So, in your opinion, is it artists' responsibility to give this information, or does other players like the curator, the gallery, the critics, they have to give more information, clues to understand the art?
The only responsibility you have as an artist is to produce a work.
Yeah.
So, but the question with the portfolio, if you want to start to circulate information about your work, it is very helpful at least if you give information which are not interpreting. I mean, you interpret anyhow, somehow, but sometimes like giving a concept, so telling, okay, this was first, this was the second, and that is what happened then, something like that. So also to make understandable images, not explaining very often performances. So you need to have a description at least. So these things are very helpful if they are provided by the author, him or herself. The interpretation thing is something else. And my experience is that people can engage with contemporary art much easier when you don't tell them that it is art. Because they really are open. In the moment when you not push them, you need to understand. I did a project in a museum, and I love contemporary music. What I mean with contemporary music is not just pop or whatever. I mean really free jazz and also really contemporary music, which is really not the most easier one to listen to. And mostly these composers say, oh, nobody is interested in our music. So I commissioned composers to do little pieces for a cappella singers. Then I asked the singers to perform these pieces in a museum, but we did not announce when and it's happening. They were walking in the museum as normal visitors, and then they start to sing. We did this every Sunday, last Sunday in a month for 1 year. At the end of the year, we had followers there, live, coming to listen, more than 200 people. And I asked these people, are you interested in contemporary music? They said, no, we have never listened to this before in our life. But we liked that. It is very interesting. So also the singers were super surprised. They listened in our concert. These people normally never come. They're never there. And now they are here. You know, they brought little sticks, say, oh, listen, we recorded this for you, and we did this for you. This is a present to us. So there was a huge exchange. That is my very positive personal experience, that in the moment when you are really ask people what is there for you, and you let them make their own experiences, things work. If you tell them what they have to experience, it doesn't work. That is a very difficult thing. And contemporary art is, on the one side, of course, very difficult somehow, but it's also very easy. You know, I mean, people make a lot about Duchamp, but the thing is that he just made something, make you thinking differently about something. Every can be everything. You know, it's just a framing. You know, reality is a construction of what is there and what we think it is. It is both. And you can go out and think about everything what you see, oh, this is made as an art piece. What does it mean? In that moment, the world is changing totally. You fictionalize the world. And fiction is part of our way of engaging with the world. So playing in this field of fiction is the most important thing for me. So I would call fictionalizing the method, you know? And also when you analyze things, documents, it's very helpful to ask which is the fiction in here. What is the narration, what is given to you? Because also documents are only a way of fictionalizing the world. But there's a way where people believe, oh, this fiction is hitting reality. But documentary is a fiction mode. And that is what we learned at least in the last 10 years.
Olaf, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I hope I worded the question correctly. My question is, how do you choose the medium of your work? As we saw just now, you use many different mediums, stones, light, sneakers. How do you find the medium or material that represent your idea?
Thank you for this question. It's a very good question. I think each idea needs a special medium. You need to find the right medium for the idea. So, for example, with the sneaker, I could have wrote a text like Sadie Smith. But the nice thing is, when you really create an object and people can play with it, then you engage. So in the moment when I had this idea, it has to be a blow-up sculpture and you can sit in it and you can crawl in it and you can infantilize yourself. So, and you can enjoy it, and kids are doing it a lot. And parents are hanging out with their kids there, then you engage in a different way. So that was only possible by this physical sculpture. If I would read it to you, I would make a lecture. But I don't want to do a lecture. But I want to give you the opportunity, if you're already interested in, you can continue. Then you find a text. Then you find more material. So that is what is also important. You don't have to explain the things, but if people want to know more, it is good to give them the opportunity to get into it. So the books is something what is all there, the publications. It doesn't mean to have a book. It could be an announcement on the website. It could be also a cool moment of how to engage with the social media, you know, to invent a figure or whatever. So that is something what you all can do, and I really like that if somebody asks a question, that they can continue, that they can go more. And then, but you cannot force people to ask questions. So that is the thing, you know. That is my deep belief. You're not changing a person by telling him change. The person needs to have this feeling for him or herself that something should change or whatever, or just be different. So, and that is, yeah. And I also like to do things which I have no idea about. I learn a lot, you know. When I did the sneakers, so I went to the company, they introduced me to these things, this and this and this. Also the printing thing, what I did with these colors, I only could do that because I was several times in the printing house and standing next to the printer, and I saw how they do it, and then this is really something when you produce things, and I love to collaborate with different people, and I love to get into things where I have no fucking idea what is it. For the thing with the stars, I was consulting a person from astronomy several times, and we were wow, that's super interesting. I have not that much knowledge about it, and so slowly I dived into it. And for me, this is the most fantastic thing, to learn it this way, because it's exciting. I mean, I'm totally excited by new things and getting, and that is something what when you engage also with. You saw this movie with this dancing spot, right? About the pole. So I had this idea when I was in a club. So I was just dancing, seeing the lights. I thought, oh, it would be nice if the light was dance in this space. So then I went to somebody that, listen, I have this idea of a dancing light. I said, what do you mean? I said, oh, Then he said, okay, but it needs a pole. I said, yeah, pole dancer, that's a good idea. So then we produced it, and then there were the machines. And he said, oh, we have a little problem. I said, what is the problem? The machines are making noise. In the beginning, I thought about a silent thing, right? It's really a problem. Let's listen to the noise. So, and then I thought, wow, that's super cool, because all what you hear there is just the noise of the machines. It is not a composition. But by having joysticks to make it, I was composing the movement of the whole thing after listening. I was reacting to the sound. So it was like a composition. And this piece was invited to a music festival as a composition because of the sound. But the sounds are just the engines. So that would never happen if somebody would have been thinking about, oh, I do exactly what you want. But problems are very helpful. So when you have a problem, never hide it. Make it bigger. That's one a good thing. Make the problem so big that you have to deal with it. And that creates a lot of interesting things for me. Sometimes there are also problems which kill your ideas. Then you have to give up sometimes. And then they come back. Good ideas are coming back. Good ideas are undead. They're like vampires. They want to suck you. They want to all the time. So sometimes it's saying the creative process is killing ideas. Just kill them so long as they come back. If they really come back all the time, then you need to do it.
I have a question. So I was just wondering how you work. Like, for example, you showed us a lot of projects which were made for specific places. And I don't know if you have some ideas and then you propose them to different museums or art spaces or festivals, or you only start to have an idea when somebody approaches you and says, for example, this is our space, can you do something for us? And maybe you could also give advice to young artists, how do they proceed with their ideas?
When you get an invitation to something and you analyze a bit, you normally understand very quick what they want. So when I did, for example, this piece at Documenta, I got a lot of invitations to exhibitions, and I understood, oh, these are pieces, they want a piece about nature. They want exactly this piece, but they cannot reproduce this piece. So they, you know, when somebody is having a show, they make a composition. So they ask an artist for a specific contribution, what they need. So when you see the concept, you understand what you are needed for. Now the point is that you never should do what they want. That's my opinion. I say, listen, I want to do something else. After this piece at this Documenta, I stopped doing anything related to nature. Because I thought, if I do this, I'm trapped. In 5 years, people will only ask me about such pieces. And I have no chance to do something else. So I try to keep the things really in a way open. And when I get an invitation, I all the time say, listen, I have no idea yet, but let me be there and find it out. And sometimes the ideas, they come very late. I have no idea sometimes. And that is very helpful, that people trust you. That is something what is very important. That people, when they invite you, they trust you. And then, yeah, that is how I work. I mean, sometimes there are also things which I'm very interested in to do. And then you have to wait till a moment where somebody is addressing you and think, oh, that would fit here. That's good for here. So it's also good to take notes and to keep projects in mind, what you think, oh, this is a project I really want to do, but I cannot do it right now. But then there's a moment where you say, oh, that could fit here. So let's try to do it here. But also, that is a very personal attitude of me, that I really want to engage with the contexts. Because when you get somewhere, these contexts are creating something what you cannot have anywhere else. For example, Venice Biennial is not a museum. You could do something like in a museum, but I wanted to do something what you only could do there and nowhere else. So the space you exhibit the things in are somehow also part of the work already. So that is also something what I try to reflect very much. So, and you can also initiate works. I mean, with the postcard, I showed you this with the postcard in Naples. That was nothing. Everybody could do that work in terms of budget. You don't need a curator, you don't need anybody. Just do it. So you can do a lot more things than, I mean, the first works of Jenny Holzer, for example, were, and her works, she made stickers and were just putting them on the telephone booths in New York. Or Laurie Anderson. These people just walked around and did things in a corner. So this is still possible to do. you see already everything in the way of how you can go in a career. It's, I think, sometimes not the most interesting thing to do. What would you want to do in 10 years? So, you know, this is something what is accumulating and engaging with reality and engaging with life as it is. I mean, there are a lot of interesting people out there in the art world who are understanding that, so you have a conversation with them. The curators, very good curators, really, if they are contacting artists, they never would tell, oh, I want this. Maybe somebody say, I like this work, I would like to include it. But mostly they listen first with you, having a conversation, just listening to you and trying to find out how does it work. And then it's trust. You need also trust when you work with a person for a longer period. So this is also very important. How you choose a network, how you together, and also how you support each other, you know. Sometimes when you're invited to a show, I sometimes say, oh, maybe not me, can you invite this artist? I think it is fitting better than me. So that's also something what you do from time to time. That you recommend people and say, oh, listen, look at this artist. That is really interesting. I saw just the work of this artist. And I think it's great. And so, you know, because it is not a personal owning things. It is the world we are in. But it is also very difficult to tell me, from my position, to younger artists what to do. I'm not sure if I would be a young artist right now, that I would know what to do. I'm not sure about that, because it's a very different and intense world in the way, you know, this the community I was describing. To find such a community and to create such a community is not that easy anymore, because we had also a lack of things. When you have not every opportunity, then you have to cultivate the things you have. So, for example, traveling. And now traveling is a social value again. There was a time where traveling was super cheap. You could go everywhere for nothing. This is over, I guess. You know, in the early 2000s, with EasyJet, all these things, nobody cared. So everybody went everywhere. So you had friends in Italy, you went there, you did little shows with them just in an off space. You didn't need a budget for this. You could do that. These days, it is very difficult without doing budgets things. You know, so that has changed a lot. Also, when you look at galleries, how galleries are changed. The late 90s, galleries started to have office spaces. Today, the office spaces of galleries are bigger than the exhibition spaces. Before, there were only exhibition spaces. There was just a little desk, that's it. Then the office spaces turned into a huge thing, and now there's the office spaces. Galleries are enterprises. That is a big change. You are part of an industry. So this is something what makes also but on the other side, it's also working, for example, in Germany is a huge privilege, because when people at the academy there, and they finish academy, there are a lot of stipends. There are a lot of prizes for young artists, which were not existing before. The city of Munich, for example, giving studios to artists. You can apply for a lot of things. The support is unbelievably high. But this is just there, right? If I go somewhere else, like here, I think it's a totally different situation. And that's why it's so difficult from my point of view to give advices, because the situation is different. So you know more about your world than I. How can I tell you something? That's very difficult. I mean, it's great that you have a gallery like this gallery here. You see the catalogs, you see how they really try to make things possible. This is a work which not that many galleries are doing. You know, to put in the information, to make things visible, to have contacts, to host me here, for example. All these things. That is something what is not a normal, logical thing in a business world. Then you just think about business. But if you think in wider terms, it is very good to do that. But it is like You have to find people who support this as well. Yeah. I'm not sure if this was helpful. I mean, that is what I find the most interesting thing. When you do something and you form something, you do something more than you have in intention, because the form is smarter than you. Because the form that you use is something what has knowledge in it, which you don't need to know, but you use it. So an artwork can teach you things what you don't know. I'm interested in the artworks because they tell me things that I have no idea about. So the question of responsibility is a little bit a crazy thing, because responsibility comes out of a different context. It's a legal context. And the artworks are something else for me. And artworks for me are all the time smarter than their authors. And they have an independent life. And they are not responsible for their authors. So there can be artworks which are amazing, but the authors are assholes. They are really not very good people, not positive people, but the works are amazing. And that is a big difficulty when you want to connect all the time the person with the work, which is a big tendency to connect this and to say, oh, you are responsible. And I think that is, when you would look at this, art history would be very empty. Because Caravaggio was a murderer. So, would you look at Caravaggio? Not anymore? I don't make the choice. I make it for myself. I don't tell anybody to do it. But I think it's something to keep in mind, you know, the openness of what is art. It's a field. Yeah, of course, there is a responsibility that you, for example, not harm other people with your artwork. For example, you cannot ask somebody to commit suicide for your artwork. Or there are a lot of things where you, so there are borders, I think, of course. But what I'm talking about is more this thing that you cannot put your intention into the work and say, okay, that's what it is. There's more there, and you have to pay respect to this, what is the more. And that makes it so interesting. That makes it so challenging to go through this. Also that you understand, oh, I'm failed in the way what I wanted to do. It's something totally different what happens here. So that you have to expect, and that you have also to accept. But the interesting thing is to ask, okay, why? And then to read it, you learn a lot, you know. You learn, okay, this happens because of this and this and this. So that you can study it. Artwork is a little bit like a lackmus, you know, like a test, what you do in chemicals, that you can put it into the system and you see how the system is working. So, and that is something what I think it is very helpful. But at the end, it is also the most important thing is it should make fun. So that is to play with it. When I did the labyrinth, of course, I had not only the idea of IKEA, I have, of course, the idea of playing in it and running around in it and having fun with kids and playing with them. So, or playing yourself as a kid. So there's a lot of fun as well. So that is something. But also when you play and you have fun, you are socialized. You know, you learn society through play. So that is what everybody who raises kids can see, how they play, how they imitate what they do. And so that is what happens a lot as well. Which strike you mean? Ah, yeah. How did I do that? But is there direct connection? You know, I mean, that is the funny thing with this. It is just an assuming. That the city council of Naples, they thought it has to do with it. If you would ask the taxi driver who went there, I'm not sure. But the interesting thing is that it had something. They did not go there because of my image. They did not go there because they needed to strike. And there was a reason for the strike. If they would not have gone there, they would have gone anywhere else. What they did, they just imitated an image. Because they found the image helpful. But the reason why they striked was not the image. You know? So that is what is the difference. Not so far as I can think about it. There are some artworks I did not do because I felt the consequences. Because there's one gallerist once told me a very nice sentence. He said, "Listen, it doesn't matter how much you money get for work, if you can never buy it back." So when you do something in a context you don't feel comfortable with, I simply don't do it, because I will never make this unhappening. So I had opportunities to do bigger works in contexts where I did not feel well. I said, no, I'm not accepting this invitation. Or I accept the invitation only under the condition that I can say no. So that is for me very important, that I also have an idea which context I am in, where I want to be seen. And if there's something where I have doubts about, I don't do it. It doesn't matter how much money they pay you. That's what I learned. That was very good advice of a very good well-known gallerist. You cannot buy something what you did wrong back for not money in the world. It's out there. So that's why you have also a responsibility towards yourself. You know, how you want to be seen, what is yours. But it's a personal choice. I would never anybody tell what to do. But I have to make my own choices. I say, listen, this I feel comfortable with, this I want to work with, or this I want to support, then I'm happy to support this. But there are other things I want not to support. And I say, no, this is not my cup of tea. So there's also in which scene you want to be seen, what you want to articulate, that is also a choice, you know. For example, the publications I do mostly myself, or I chose very carefully the publisher I want to work with. So also the institutions, when they invite me, I also check first a bit who is there, what is it. So, and that is also to pay attention where you are. I have a lot of people I work with, so I form a team, and then we start to work, and I like to research. I like to read. I like to go into archives, and I like to collect knowledge. Sometimes for no reason. Sometimes I have no idea what comes out of it. So, but sometimes it's quite interesting, you know. Exactly. Now, right now, history. Yeah, history. Now you will be represented. It's changing. But there used to be a different way of focus. There was a very strong way of Western art was very much with itself. But also in the Western world, there was, after the fall of the wall, the Iron Curtain, the eastern part of Europe had the same thing, that a lot of Eastern artists are not represented anywhere. You know, I grew up in East Germany. Both. For example, in East Germany, there used to be a very interesting crowd of older artists. They never got mileage, they never got exhibited. Now they get exhibited, 30 years after the wall came down. So, just as an example, how long things are taking before you see this. So that, and also you see their own institutions of countries, you know. And it's also an economical power game, what is behind there. So it is slowly changing, I'm sure, but it will take time. So, but my experience is really, it takes much longer than you expect, unfortunately. So, and the reasons you can go into a lot of things, and thinking about colonialism, you can think about the Western thing, you can think about the Soviet Union as a closed cage, which was not very well communicated to anybody. And now there's a huge of exotism, so everybody's keen to see new resources, to see new stuff, which is totally different. So, you know, this was the same when with East Germany. The West German young artists were extremely disappointed in the early 90s because every step went to Eastern artists, because they were new, they were fresh, they were different. So there was a kind of very strange competition in the beginning for the resources. So that is also something. Also with the art market changed a lot. I mean, it's a big enterprise on the one side, but on the other side you have a lot of different markets. You not have only the big art market. You have a lot of communities existing which are not caring so much for the big art market. They do their work with their communities. You are not a good artist just when you are published in the art forum. You can be a good artist without ever being published in the art forum. So it's hard to judge it. But I think it will change, what I see. I mean, there's so much new things going on. There's so many interesting things coming. But also when I go here through these publications, a lot of these artists I never heard about before. And I look through it and think, that's amazing, that's great work, you know. So, and they will be visible somewhere. So it takes time.